All right, time for another episode of the Metallist. So in our last exciting episode, I did a tribute to all my KISS tour books that I've gotten through the years. Most of my tour books are KISS, but I do have a few other ones. I thought, oh, these are pretty cool. You guys might want to check these out. So start off with talking about the t-shirt here. This is a Maiden shirt, but the interesting thing about it is it doesn't have the Maiden logo across the top, like most of them does. So this is from the Matter of Life and Death album. So this tour probably been 2006, 2007. The cover is a single for the reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg. And I got to be honest, since they brought back Bruce in 2000, love Brave New World. I think Book of Souls, the last record that came out, was pretty solid. The three in between, I don't remember much about them, including Benjamin Brieg. If you ask me for some lyrics or how the reincarnation of Benjamin Brieg goes as far as the song, sorry, can't help you. So yeah, I would say probably A Matter of Life and Death. And I know my good buddy Chuck, shout out to Chuck, this is one of his favorites since the Reformation, shall we call it. I don't have any recollection of it hardly at all. It just didn't catch me, and I probably didn't give it enough time. I was probably really into something else at the time, but what that was, I don't know off the top of my head. And then the other two albums, I remember The Final Frontier was just like, I don't know, a lot of it just didn't sound like Maiden. You know, it's kind of, you know, I don't know. It just wasn't. I have vague memories of El Dorado and I think the title track. That's about it. And then the Dance of Death, and I remember a little more of that album. I remember Rainmaker. I kind of like simply because the intro kind of sounded like a Thin Lizzy kind of song, and a couple other songs on there that were pretty good. As I remember, Passchendaele and Munziger or something. They had a bunch of weird pronunciations on that one, but there was some pretty decent songs. The title track, I remember some of that stuff. But yeah, the albums are definitely Brave New World, start to finish, love. And I think Book of Souls is pretty solid, especially for being such a long record. But enough about Maiden. Let's get into what we're actually going to talk about today. So the first book here, this one I can be amused with because much like KISS, here is the tour book for OZZY from his No More Tours tour almost 30 years ago. Yeah, we see how that worked out, right? Anyway, so I picked this one up, kind of a cool picture of Oz. You guys can tell that this is pretty much from the No More Tears era just by the photo itself. But then we got some older pictures here. OZZY, who apparently was missing his razor for a little bit. Not that I've found mine recently, so I have nothing to say. But back in the fringes, so that looks more like a Black Sabbath or maybe the first tour. And then here we do have some pictures of the Sabbath guys. Of course, you know, Bill and Ozzy, Geezer and Tony. So a little bit of a historical perspective, a lot like the KISS books that you saw in the last episode. And then, of course, we move on here to the Blizzard era. Of course, the late great Randy Rhoads. We all miss to this day. Randy unfortunately perished not too far from here in Lakeland, Florida, back in March of 1982. I was fortunate enough to see OZZY with Randy twice. And the second time was the last day of January 1982. And it was about 6 weeks later that Randy was not with us anymore. So kind of a bummer, but was very fortunate that I did get to see him play live. This looks like a little bit more like the Ultimate Sin era with all the glitz and glitter that was the middle 80s, right? Oh, and incidentally, the little person here that was part of Ozzy's tour back on the Diary of the Madman tour conveniently was named Ronnie. Okay, short guy named Ronnie, we get it. I don't think it's particularly funny, but I kind of do anyway. But should make fun of Ronnie. That's all we got to say. Okay, so some more sort of Ultimate Sin period here. So a bit of a retrospective. My buddy Chuck used to call this the ultimate ass, which I always thought was amusing. So that's my second shout out to Chuck here. Pictures from No Rest in Wicked. It's kind of a cool picture here. Apparently Ozzy's gonna get us with a baseball bat. There it looks. I think usually the volume was enough. We didn't need that. Okay, so we have, it's kind of a cool picture of Oz. I like that one. And then the later band here, Randy Castile, who isn't with us anymore, also played with Motley Crue for a while. Mike Inez, I believe he's still in Alice in Chains. And down below is a very different looking Zakk Wylde, sitting next to Ozzy. And where Zakk is known around this house, Hanging with the Hardcore, which is a reference to the Rockstar movie that he was in, where he told Marky Mark, who was loosely basing himself on Tim Ripper Owens. He says, "Hanging with the Hardcore now, bro." So that's what he's known as around here, Hanging with the Hardcore. So we got some more pictures here. Another kind of cool picture of Ozzy, sort of with the plaid, almost has a grunge vibe to it. Not that Ozzy ever had much of a grunge vibe, but that's all right. Okay. So again, another shot of the No More Tears band. And cool picture of Zakk over here. Again, much less biker-like than he is these days with Black Label. All right. Okay. And then we have Randy and Mike. Always liked Mike's hair. The dude's got some serious hair. Not quite Ian Asbury hair, but pretty awesome, gotta say. Not quite sure why Ozzy was so obsessed with his baseball bat, this particular issue here, but there he is again with the bat. Hopefully that wasn't meant for sharing. And of course, like I said, this was, the No More Tours was in conjunction with the No More Tears album. But I think the fact that No More Tears sold, I think, like, I don't know, 4 million copies in the States, may have persuaded Sharon to tell him, perhaps also you should go back out on the road again, right? So, cool book. All right, let's go back a little further. This is, well, when the tour came around here, it was 1979. And I'm not quite sure why, but I have 2 different tour books of Alice Cooper from the Madhouse Rock Tour, which was, again, his album From the Inside, which happens to be one of my favorites. He actually worked with Bernie Taupin of Elton John fame. Speaking of which, Elton John's guitarist, Davy Johnstone, toured with him this particular year. So Alice was off the sauce, allegedly, but he certainly needed some food. I mean, Alice was frightfully skinny at this point. But it was a great show. It was a really great show. And we saw this, I want to say, was February of '79. And the Babies were the opening band. And a little shout out to the folks that went to me. Shout out to Christy and Wyatt. And shout out to Alan. And I've heard, I don't know this, I haven't heard anything about it, my buddy Alan in years, but I heard he is not with us anymore. I hope that's not true, but I have heard that. But I know Christy's here. Christy is a regular viewer, and I appreciate it. And she's just a great rock and roller. So shout out to you, girl. I'm glad to have you on. So again, great show. Yeah, matter of fact, here you can see in the background here, that's Davy Johnstone from the Elton John band. Matter of fact, Alice, when he introduced everybody, referred to him as, this guy used to work with a little Englishman. And I remember Davey started playing a little bit of Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Alice told him, hey, stop that, I pay you more. Which I thought was amusing. And if I'm not mistaken, the woman in the nun's outfit is Cheryl Cooper. And Alice married her right around this time, maybe a little bit earlier. I want to say they got married in '77 and are married to this day. And That's a heck of a thing, especially in the world of entertainment and rock and roll. And here we got the electric chair, one of the many ways that Alice would off himself during the show. Of course, the other ones are the hanging and the guillotine and all that fun stuff. But very cool show, always a lot of props and extras and dancers and things like this. And there's Alice's head somewhere there. Yeah, there it is. So there's Alice's head from when it got chopped off probably a couple minutes prior to that. And of course the mighty snake. And the picture, I remember this was a bottle. It was like a break apart bottle, and he would like smash that over Davy Johnstone's head at the show. So very cool. And big fan of Alice Cooper. He is coming back to the area here. So when I go see him this time, it'll mean that I have now seen Alice Cooper in 6 different decades. A little scary, right? Okay, of course the baby dolls was a big part of the show. And some merch that they like to put in the programs back then. You notice Kiss did the same thing on the last episode. And here's our certificate of insanity. And a guy that just looks like he's nuts. But definitely one of my all-time favorites. The mighty Alice Cooper. Very cool. All right, so take a quick look, see, compare and contrast here. So a nice shot of the snake. And of course, just Alice himself with the classic makeup. It was a couple years after that he got rid of the classic makeup, kind of went punk new wave for an album called Flush the Fashion, which I actually quite liked. And then he did the Blackout albums, Special Forces and Dada. I remember seeing the Special Forces tour at the Front Row Theater on the east side of Cleveland. No, west side of Cleveland, my bad. And again, here's the Madhouse Rock thing. And once again, I believe that is Cheryl Cooper down there. Quite the relationship they have, right? Obviously, it must work for them. I understand they are both children of preachers. So a little crowd mayhem here. I don't remember anything like that in Cleveland, but nonetheless, something must have happened someplace. So, a picture of Alice actually being more Vince, I guess, here. A little more Vincent Fournier, right? Kind of a cool shot. And, of course, looking out, I assume that's supposed to be a snake, but it looks awful big for a snake. And interestingly enough, if you can look really close here, it appears that Alice has a reference to Salvador Dali down here. So the interesting thing is in St. Petersburg, Florida, there is a Dali museum, which we've been to several times. It's a very cool place. If you're in the area, or if you're ever in the area, I certainly recommend it. I always like that one with the top hat. And the first time we went there, we were getting ready to go, and I put on one of my Alice Cooper shirts. My wife looks at me and says, "You're wearing an Alice Cooper shirt to the Dali Museum?" And I said, "Yeah." And she says, "Why?" I said, "Well, I want to check something out." So we get there, and they have these charming elderly ladies that know everything about the Dali and his paintings, which, I mean, the information that they were putting forth. As you see, Alice was quite the Main Street celebrity, despite what a lot of people thought, hanging out with Sinatra here. Groucho Marx and Mae West and a lot of the old vaudeville people really liked Alice because basically they said he was doing vaudeville. Alice also was instrumental in getting the Hollywood sign repaired when it was not doing well. He was doing a lot of that kind of stuff. But anyway, what was I telling you? I totally forgot. It'll probably come back. Looks like a couple more shots of Alice and Cheryl. Okay. All right. That's kind of a cool one there. Always dug those boots. He was wearing those, I think, the very first time I saw him. He opened the show with Hello, Hooray, which just kind of blew my mind as a young kid. And I think it was the say was Welcome to My Nightmare. I did not get to see the original Alice Cooper band, which always kind of bums me out, but they broke up pretty early on in my development. All right, another certificate in insanity, not that I need a second one, but there we go. Okay, so this next one, I'm not quite sure why I bought this, but I'm kind of glad I did. So this next one here, I'm taking out of a plastic wrapper. This is a tour book from Rush, from the Permanent Waves Tour in 1980. Let's see, the World Tour in 1980. Wanted to show this one in particular, give a shout out to a guy I know, photographer extraordinaire Joe Cleon, who is quite the Rush fan. He is so much the Rush fan that his two cats are named Getty and Alex. And some liner notes here. I'm very sad to report that, unfortunately, Getty is no longer with us. He passed away here about a week ago. And Joe, if you're watching, I would like to give you my personal condolences. I know how rough it is to lose a longtime pet that means a lot to you. So I'm with you on that one, man. But anyway, Joe is a fantastic photographer. As a matter of fact, when we're done with this book, I want to show you one thing real quick. You notice there's a little change in background here tonight. So, of course, here, the late great Neil Peart behind the massive drum kit. I do remember at this particular show, you were able to go behind the stage, like, you know, from the back. And a lot of times they had it blocked off, but this particular night they did. So I remember we went around the back and we went down as far as we could behind Neil, because normally you can't see what he's doing behind the gargantuan drum set. And here's Getty, probably at Le Studio up in Toronto, where they tended to do a lot of recording. So anyway, we went down behind so we could actually watch Neil play, because like I said, from the front, and this was before they had like a lot of cameras and things like that, where they would show, you know, like video of Neil as he's playing, you know, so you could get a little better look at him. And, you know, of course, like I said, the sets were always gargantuan, so it was hard to see him. And, this is actually one of the smaller kits of Neil's. I say smaller and I kind of chuckle to myself, right? Okay. But anyway, so we went down behind him, and that was really great. What was interesting was he would be sitting there playing, and while he was just, you know, kind of keeping the beat on something, he would just sit there and he would just like flip his drumstick while he was playing. Nobody could see it, but he was still doing it. We could see it, but I mean, we were like, you know, a couple kids out of, you know, 15, 20,000, right? So again, here we go. There's the guys out on the dock, it looks like. And the number of records at that point, not that many actually. Of course, I do own all these. I don't think I have that archives thing down in the corner because I have all the records anyway. But here's what it basically looked like when we're sitting behind Neil, which was very cool. Okay. So anyway, and I might have to shut the light off here for a second. Like I said, Joe is a photographer, and this is, hopefully we can see that. This is one of Joe's pictures of one of my wife's favorites. Yes, this is Cher. And yes, I have seen Cher, I think 5 times in 3 different states, and it's worth the effort. So this was a picture that I had seen that Joe had up. We talked a little bit. He got it all matted and framed for me and put it together. So he does that kind of work for people. So it is Joe Cleon, K-L-E-O-N. You can Google him, and if you want to contact him and check out his rather extensive library of photos. So that's my plug for Joe. And I do appreciate that picture, because at one point from our previous residence, we only had 2 pictures on the wall, and that was one of them. All right, so let's check out a couple more, and we'll call it a night. So this next one here, back to one of the favorites. Maiden, of course. So this one is from the Peace of Mind tour, all the way back to 1983. Okay, so it kind of looks like an album cover. It's about the size of an album cover. Okay, here, I'm missing the page. Yep, there we go. There's a little shot of the boys from the back, probably over in Europe somewhere. Here we go. Some shots of someone imitating Eddie. That'd be a fun job to have. Run out on stage and be Eddie with these guys. So again, some more pictures of the guy. Look how young Nico is there. This would have been his first tour. After Clive departed, here they are at Transylvania. It's kind of amusing. All right. I always thought this was funny. The reference here to Frank Zappa about them being dental floss salesmen from Montana. This is a reference to, I think, Don't Eat the Yellow Snow, or I'm not even sure what the title of that was. I respect Zappa, but I don't think I'm enough of a musician to really get what's going on with him. He was more of a composer than a rock and roll guy, I suppose. If anybody wants to educate me on Zappa, feel free to do so in the comments. Again, a very young Nico, who apparently lives over by Lauderdale. There's a restaurant there called Rock and Roll Ribs. That's why they started one of their tours here not too long ago over there. I buzzed across the state to go see them. So I guess they probably pulled in the 767 that Bruce was flying, picked up their drummer, and started their tour in Fort Lauderdale. Nice picture of Adrian there. Very cool. It's so cool that like most of these guys are still in the band. You know, with the addition of Yannick. Here we go. I mean, you know, we still have Bruce, we still have Steve, we still have Adrian, we still have Davey, and we still have Nico in the back. So pretty much it's, you know, the same lineup now with the addition of Yannick Gerst. Pretty cool, gotta say. All right. Here's a great picture of Steve doing his best Pete Way imitation, and he'll be the first one to tell you that, right? And another cool picture of Steve back in the day. Actually, he doesn't look a whole lot different, to be honest. He does tend to wear shorts now. That's one of the major differences. But, I mean, his dedication to rock and roll and metal is just amazing. I mean, talk about a guy who's into what he does, right? Okay, nice stage shot there. Shot of Bruce back when he had hair, and hair that wasn't gray as well. It's okay, we still love him. Although the people that know me well know I'm a Paul Di'Anno guy, because that's when I came into the band, so I have a special soft spot for Paul. But obviously Bruce took them to heights that probably Paul would have never got them to. All right, a couple more pages here. Some more cool shots from the old days. We got one over here of just the stage plan. I don't think we need to see that. Schematics are kind of boring. Here's some of the crew. Most of these guys have been with them for a very, very long time. And if you see in their documentaries, you would know that. They had like the same road manager and lighting manager and things like that for years and years. And of course, if you want to order some stuff, as was often the case in these things, fan clubs and whatnot. And over here, a little bit more about the band and the gear. And I think that is it. So kind of a cool book from '83. Closing in on 40 years old. That's a scary thought. All right, guys. Well, again, I appreciate you listening. Look forward to your comments. Got a lot of comments on the KISS program. Appreciate that. Looking forward to more of them here. And we'll call it a night now. And look forward to seeing you next time.